From the Guardians appearing in Thor 4 to speculation around the God of Thunder fighting alongside the Guardians, here's why Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 isn't going to have Thor. When you work in the MCU, you are always at the mercy of the bigger world, no matter how much control you have over a franchise, and James Gunn is a good example of this.
You know, a lot of other superhero movies are about characters that are sort of bigger than us, that are larger than us, and are above us. And the Guardians of the Galaxy are none of those things. They are us. And I think there's something that's very relatable about them. And even though we're talking about a talking raccoon.
The man wrote and directed the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy and a Disney Plus holiday special. Surprisingly, this is unusual for Marvel, where most directors leave a series after one movie. But Gunn's name will always be linked to the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, where he still has to deal with surprises when his characters are used in the MCU continuity. As we saw in Avengers Endgame, Thor teamed up with Star-Lord and the rest of the Guardians at the end.
It's not necessary. It's not. Okay?
I got some blasters unless you guys want to use knives.
Oh, yes, please. Use knives.
Yeah, knives.
I'm Groot.
And Gunn, who's now in charge of the DCU, says that he didn't really expect this. It threw him for a loop because he hadn't planned to use Thor in the last Guardians outing, which will be released in May 2023. According to Gunn, he didn't have a lot of control over what happened in Endgame, and when it came out, he asked himself, what the hell am I going to do? But the director also went on to say that fellow Marvel director Taika Waititi helped him out of his dilemma, and by the looks of it, it seems like Taika Waititi took a bullet for Gunn with Thor. Those are Gunn's words, not mine. You see, James Gunn said that Taika Waititi's decision to use the Guardians in Thor: Love and Thunder meant that Gunn could stick with his original draft of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
So you're a fan of the Marvel MCU. How did that affect you, taking the job as well as your vision for what this film should be?
Well, taking the job was easy because I just, my chance at making a superhero movie,
which didn't include Chris Hemsworth's God of Thunder, and instead focused on the origin of one Guardians member, Rocket Raccoon. According to James Gunn, Taika took a bullet for him. You see, he wasn't going to let Thor into his last MCU movie because of that, and because of Taika's brilliance. Not talking about the brilliance that Love and Thunder was, Gunn was able to stay true to his idea for the last movie in his trilogy. On top of that, during the 2022 San Diego Comic-Con, he told fans that it would be his last movie with the franchise. He said, "That's where the story ends. I apologize. Some stories come to an end."
What you just saw in Hall H was nothing compared to the last day on set. So we had the last day, it was me, you, Maria, Chris, and Zoe. And everybody gave a speech.
But he also added, that doesn't mean everyone dies. And from what I can make of it, someone is going to die, if not everyone. But I can't stop thinking how without Thor: Love and Thunder taking care of that bit of housekeeping, it would have been strange for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 to just ignore Thor joining the team, or explain it with just a line of dialogue. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 will be even harder for the mismatched group if the Asgardians of the Galaxy don't work together. You see, in the Phase 5 movie, the team will fight two new big bad guys who are now part of the MCU. High Evolutionary is going to be the big bad, while Adam Warlock is also expected to go the bad guy route initially in the movie. But since the High Evolutionary and Adam Warlock might work together, I can't help but think about how the bad guys in Volume 3 show why Thor should have come back. To put it simply, High Evolutionary and Adam Warlock are too strong for the Guardians to handle on their own. And in the trailers, we've only seen a little bit of what each of the characters can do. For example, we've only seen High Evolutionary levitate and Adam Warlock shoot energy beams. But die-hard comic book fans already know how Warlock can fly, control energy, and be almost immortal, while High Evolutionary has super strength and can make force fields, among other things. This makes them a huge danger to the Guardians team, both on their own and especially when they work together. But based on how the MCU has presented each Guardian of the Galaxy character and how powerful they are, it's really hard to see how they could beat either villain. Star-Lord no longer has his celestial powers, so he and Rocket can only rely on customized weapons.
You know why I did it, Star Munch?
You're not gonna answer, Star Munch.
I did it because I wanted to. What are we even talking about this for? We just had a little man save us by blowing up 50 ships.
How little?
I don't know, like
this?
And even though Gamora, Drax, and Nebula are trained fighters with super strength and other skills, they still are not strong enough to defeat the bad guys in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. And while Mantis doesn't fight a lot with her skills, we're only left with Groot, who's just a tree. And this brings me to my next point: how Thor would have made the fight between the Guardians and High Evolutionaries fairer. It's safe to say that Thor, the God of Thunder, was already the strongest member of the team during the short time he was with them. But that's not all. He's also one of the strongest characters in the MCU as a whole. Thor going up against High Evolutionary and Adam Warlock makes sense, since he could fight either of them on his own. And after he left them in Love and Thunder, he became an even better friend to the Guardians. On top of that, the MCU's Phase 4 movie was another example of how Thor's abilities are getting stronger and stronger. But the Guardians of the Galaxy would benefit most from his new ability to share his skills with other people. And if Thor had come back in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, he could have given each member of the team his Asgardian powers, which would give the team superpowers right away, giving them more than enough power to beat the High Evolutionary and Adam Warlock. But instead, Thor's departure from Volume 3 could be felt a lot as the team fights these powerful bad guys. And while Volume 3 would have been great if Chris Hemsworth's Thor continued to have funny interactions with Star-Lord and the rest of the team, it kind of makes the most sense that the last part of the Guardians would focus on the team as a whole. And this is why I think Thor's absence in Volume 3 is probably for the best. Now, we all know how Thor is a fan favorite, and one of the last original Avengers in the MCU. So, his presence in the movie, no matter how tiny, would have definitely taken some of the attention away from the franchise's main characters. At the same time, Love and Thunder did a good job of sending Odinson and the Guardians on their separate ways, and Star-Lord's talk with Thor opened his eyes as a parting gift. And now that Thor is out of the way, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 can focus only on how the team's story ends. On top of that, some of the Guardians might leave the MCU with the movie. As we all know, this is Dave Bautista's last time playing Drax in the MCU, and I think Volume 3 could end the MCU story of one of its characters by killing them, just like the first movie did with Groot and the second movie did with Yondu. You see, the last movie in the trilogy focuses a lot on Rocket, as shown in the trailers and the promotional posters. On top of that, he also has beef with the High Evolutionary. And as for the character that's most likely to die, yep, you guessed it, it's Rocket Raccoon. But this also means that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 would have a powerful finish if Rocket gave his life to save the team, instead of Thor coming in to save the day. But let's be honest, no one's ready to see him die yet. And with that being said, that's all from my end on why Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was never going to include Thor.